In school, we have our favorite subjects and our least favorite subjects. Even weirder for me, it was the same course. I liked queer theory, but I thought the writing was a little too hard to understand. It wasn't until after the class was over that I was introduced to Low theory. Throughout my speech, I have highlighted, underlined, and crossed out words as a way to explain and show Low theory. During my time at UW-Eau Claire, I was fortunate to be in 2 queer theory courses. Professor Landris was monumental in helping me foster a deep appreciation for the subject matter and furthering my passion for the subject matter on topics I continue to educate myself on. The goal of Low theory is to offer accessible understanding of high theory concepts in a way that is understandable to the general public. However, in doing so, it risks itself not being taken seriously academically. My goal here today is to introduce topics such as failure, disidentification, and utopia, and provide examples to enhance understanding. To begin, I will first discuss Judith Halberstam's academic work, The Queer Art of Failure, published through Duke University. Her work references Lee Edelman's No Future from his time at Duke as well. Additionally, I've used a statistic provided by the Williams Institute, an offshoot of the UCLA campus. Failure, as defined by society, focuses on queers and those that do not participate in reproductive futurism. So, looking at the chart, the 71% saying that they would not have kids are considered biological failures for not passing down their genetic information to the next generation. But being a failure allows for escape through other ways of knowing. Failure gives us the ability to learn through out-of-the-box methods. There's no manual on being queer, so we have to figure it out ourselves. Privileging the nonsense gives us the notion that we are odd to society, so we make our own rules. Lastly, forgetting embraces new forms of memory. We have no guidebook, queerness was hidden, we have to start fresh. I will next use Christopher Guest's film, Waiting for Guffman, to apply the tools of failure. The story follows Corky as he produces a play for his town's 150th celebration. Through its production, obstacles are faced around every corner. No budget, an actor that quits, and a Broadway representative that never shows. The first of the fool's tools is resisting mastery. Corky, as a director, spends more time on character exercises and choreography than he does on making sure people know their lines. He believes a cast should know their character, to feel their character, and that lines are not that important. The next of the fool's tools is privileging nonsense. Corky's sense of success relies on an expensive budget. When denied, he quits, but he later returns to put on a successful performance out of spite. The last tool rejects memorialization. While the play is a memory to the town's history, it laughs at the absurdity of its founding, an explorer that couldn't tell the difference between Alabama and California. Shifting topics, I will now examine disidentification and provide an example for application. Disidentifications was written by Jose Esteban Munoz in 1999 while he was a professor at the University of Minnesota. Disidentification discusses dominating ideology and a subject's place within society. There are 3 subjects: the good, the bad, and the abject. The good identifies and conforms with society and ideology, otherwise known as beliefs. The bad resists and rejects identity within this ideology. The disidentified subject neither joins nor rejects the ideology. Rather, they work on and against it. Munoz goes further to clarify that disidentification doesn't reject politics. Instead, it negotiates resistance through recycling objects and expectations of an individual by calling out stereotypes within our society, opening up discussion for change. Applying this practice to application, I will use Wisconsin drag queen Trixie Mattel. To support my discussion, I will use Charlotte Holke's doctorate paper, Queer Decolonial Killjoys, written for Carleton University in Ontario, Canada. Trixie, a Wisconsin-based drag queen, has become successful due to appearances on RuPaul's Drag Race and its All-Stars reality program. Describing himself and his drag, Brian states, "My family is Native American. We grew up very, very poor, but Trixie, we have it all. The biggest problem in her life is figuring out what to wear the next day." Simply put, Trixie disidentified with their socioeconomic status and worked on and against societal norms to boost their success. Trixie's drag critiques commodification through their name Mattel, a reminder of consumer culture and drag as a whole through over-exaggerated makeup, reminding us of the absurdity of drag and it really just being a man in a wig. Trixie uses their skin color to their advantage to work on and in white spaces to their success as a minority subject, showcasing their talent and critiquing commodification through their big platform. Utopia will be the final of the queer theory subjects I cover today. Like the other two, I will provide an example to round out and clarify that point. Utopia, a theory proposed by Jose Esteban Munoz, was written in 2004 during his time teaching at New York University. Utopia opens discussion about queerness and its purposeful lack of definition. This lack of definition is done so to ensure that no group or individual is left out, to not further exclusionary tactics, and to help foster community. Queerness is utopian. It doesn't settle for classification. Instead, it looks to the future, to what is not yet here. Munoz argues that what we have is not enough, that aesthetics and media offer us glimpses into the future, and what could be, that we are not yet queer. The queer body is not yet conscious. Utopia shouldn't concern itself with who, but rather what could be. What we have is not enough, and is still toxic. Utopia allows us to critique our present. Closing out and clarifying the concept of utopia, I will be using Joseph Fink's podcast and novel adaptation, Alice Isn't Dead. He is most notably known for his podcast, Welcome to Night Vale. Shifting focus, Alice Isn't Dead tells the story of Keisha, who becomes a trucker to search for her missing wife. Keisha decides the world she has left is not enough, and investigates her wife's disappearance to later find her in the back of news stories. Seeing this, she calls for a world where her and her wife are reunited once again. On her journey to find her wife, though, she is faced with horrors carried out by men morphed by their madness. Dissatisfied with these horrors she's seeing, she desires change and sees a recurring symbol, praxis. Praxis remains without definition, but later begins to symbolize a collective tired of those roadside horrors. Despite seeing this symbol constantly, the collective was not established until she called it to action. She critiqued her present and called for a future without violence and horrors on the road. During my speech, my purpose has been to simplify queer theory concepts through the application of Low theory. Low theory takes academic concepts written oftentimes in confusing and dense language and attempts to simplify them by applying them to media and other accessible examples. In summary, throughout my speech, I have discussed queer theory topics such as failure, disidentification, and utopia, and what could be learned from these topics. These topics were further explored through Low theory applications in the film Waiting for Guffman, drag queen Trixie Mattel, and Joseph Fink's podcast, Alice Isn't Dead. Dense academic subject matter does not have to remain inaccessible. We, instead, should invest in demand in new ways of knowing to enhance our understanding and build knowledge through unconventional ways. And here are all the sources and references I have used throughout my speech.